what we're seeing today, what we woke up to, fell asleep to last night. Earlier in the year, I said that we will likely be at war in Venezuela by the end of the year, looking at what had already taken place in the preceding months, but knowing that military operations, even if you have a dominating military force, takes time. These things take time. Commanders have to have forces in the proper composition, disposition. You have to have proper chain of command and military structure established, especially when you have, in this case, a general or an admiral, Hosey, who resigned from his position, leaving a gap in a geographic combatant command, and then having to fill that in while you're still doing these interventionist drug boat strikes, which I still think are preposterous and incredibly illegal. So looking at where we are now with the actual, this is a war. The bombing on Venezuelan soil, whether it was military forces under Title 10 authority, which Congress hasn't declared war, so it's not, or it's CIA operations under Title 50 authority, which it seems to be that was the case. We now have, I mean, we kidnapped the president of a sovereign nation and then have now said we're in charge. Donald Trump basically Captain Phillips Venezuela. I'm in charge, I'm the captain now. He announced it this morning.
Let's roll it then. So this was definitely the talking point that I needed to have you on here for, because the audacity of this guy, and of course he's not in charge. Anyone who thinks that the Donald is in charge, you don't know jack squat about how things really work. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn and understand why this is the case. The absurdity of his statement earlier today, here it is.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country.
How are we going to run the country, Lieutenant Aguilar?
This was my fear since the beginning of this rhetoric, and the reason I started to think that war was inevitable is when early December 5th, when Donald Trump's signatory version of the national security strategy was released. Remember, this is the president's words to the nation on how he intends to protect the nation. And in it clearly establishes that we will assert our dominance in the Western Hemisphere, that we will enforce the Trump corollary. The national security strategy refers to that document as the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. If anybody is a student of history, you recall the last corollary we had to the Monroe Doctrine was Theodore Roosevelt. And that theory of Western Hemisphere intervention was speak softly and carry a big stick. Well, I would say the Trump corollary to this is speak loudly, lie, and drop big bombs. He's doing things in a way that are, by this point, so obvious that he didn't have a plan. And number two, this is being done at the behest and at the influence of Israel. And why I think that even more than ever, who was the first country, the first person to publicly announce and celebrate and congratulate this? Before Maduro landed in New York, before he even got off the plane, Bibi Netanyahu, Milakowski himself, already making an announcement saying that this would open up a new era of relationship with Venezuela for Israel, that they would restart their alliance or their partnership. There is no doubt in my mind that the tactics we've seen at play in the Caribbean, both off the Pacific coast and in the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic, and what we've seen in terms of going into this conflict in throwing all international law out the window, This is the playbook we've seen happening in Gaza and in against the Palestinians. And there is no doubt in my mind that the Mossad and elements of the IDF were a part of this planning. In terms of what Trump has said here, when military plans are produced at the Pentagon before they get walked across the river up to the Hill to present to Trump, although I think Pete Hegseth probably lives in a closet in the Oval Office, so it's just a matter of signal chatting the plans over to him. But if you look at what goes into this planning, you have military officers like myself from the Joint Force, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, Joint Interagency, all planning. And typically we have operations on the shelf to pull off and dust off from everything from an asteroid hitting Earth to cases such as this. In every one of those operations, you have a paragraph 6 of an operations order. Typically, you have five parts of an operation order, but nowadays we always have this 6th part of strategic communication, where public affairs officers, what I would call propagandists under this administration, will craft these talking points. What it appears clearly to me, having been a United States military officer as we invaded Iraq, and hearing our president at the time, Bush Jr., talk about all of the reasons we're invading Iraq, to me, it seems like they took the Operation Rolling Thunder, they dusted it off, they Control F and found the word Iraq, replaced it with Venezuela, dumbed down some of the words so there weren't too many syllables, and fed it to Pete Hegseth to feed to Donald Trump. This reads exactly like our failed intervention into Iraq. And why did it fail? We didn't fail because of the inability to bring military power. We failed because we went into Iraq without an achievable objective politically. War should only be fought as a last resort when all other measures fail, when negotiations fail, when all elements of national power, diplomacy, information, the military, and the economy or economic levers fail, is when you introduce the concept of war. We haven't even started or attempted in the other arenas, and we're going to war as the first option. Donald Trump has now, as a country, put us into a position that within the coming month, before we hit Valentine's Day, before we buy Hallmark cards and buy each other chocolate, we will have boots on the ground in a sizable force. We already have boots on the ground because we have CIA and we have JSOC and we have interagency operations units on the ground in Venezuela right now. That's a fact. I'm talking about boots on the ground as a sizable military force, because who's going to hold things together until there's this replacement?
Exactly. That's the whole point. It's like, we're totally gonna occupy the country. Yeah. How are you going to do that? This is the thing. It's like you're basically saying we're going to have a draft, and let's see how well that goes over. We'll see how much the American exceptionalism is willing to put up with. But the Donald has a little bit more to say here.
Until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela. And that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland.
The contradiction.
And who's standing right behind his right shoulder?
Yeah, Mr. Cuba himself.
That's not an accident.
No.
That's Marco Rubio putting himself in the spotlight behind Donald Trump, telling his audience in Florida, "This is for you. I'm still your inside guy." That wasn't an accident.
Now, since you have shared, obviously, what I consider classified information with me, which obviously I cannot repeat, we are going to share some classified information with the audience this evening. Don't ask me who I got this from. Let's just say that I know people in South Florida. Now, just one day prior to this happening, here's something a lot of people don't know. Netanyahu Milikowski may or may not still be in the United States. He was in a place called Bal Harbor, Florida. Now, for those who don't know Bal Harbor, this is an area of extreme Zionist Jewish affluence. It is just south of Aventura and just north of Surfside. And this cluster that runs along A1A is where it is the heart of where the Zio scum reside in the United States. Whether full-time or part-time, this is where they are. And this was an event that took place, I believe, on the 2nd. And here's a little snippet of commentary from Netanyahu himself.
The most important thing I would say is to combat anti-Semitism, because that's a disease that endangers not merely Jews, it endangers any society afflicted by this virus. And I think also combat the blood libel of genocide. I mean, what a blood libel, what ridiculous charges and so on. And who is putting it forward? The people who want to say openly, death to America, death to Israel. They burn American flags, they burn Israeli flags. Fight the truth, fight the battle for the truth. I have to say, good legislation, good for America, good for Israel, but I would say above that, fight the battle for truth. We just fought and won a 7-front war, but the
All right, so I had to freeze it there for an obvious reason. Two things right off the bat. The first one, of course, is that he is referring to places like Venezuela, which are not towing the line, which are committing anti-Semitism for not supporting the state of Israel and their usury practices that they so desperately want to bring to their oil-rich nation. And then we won a 7-front war. Anthony, did Eretz Yisrael win a 7-front war that I was not aware of?
Well, the truth that the American people, that some are waking up to slowly, but for the majority of America, they're still hitting that snooze button, is that Israel is at war with the United States. They're simply doing it in a very surreptitious and nefarious way, that they are winning from eroding our national values, eroding our trust in our government. Do you think that Israel doesn't know already that that politicians are becoming questioned in their loyalties? They know that, and they keep pumping in the money. And in Venezuela, another war for them that they didn't even have to fire a shot. And I guarantee you, when we have boots on the ground and Americans are sacrificing their tax dollars, their security, and their sons and daughters in uniform in a war that cannot be won, I welcome anybody, we can talk about it on here now, to look at Venezuelan insurgency and ask yourself, we couldn't win and we did not win in Iraq. We could not win and we did not win in Afghanistan. We could not win and we did not win in Northeast Syria. Talk about Venezuela with an army that's also being backed by Russia and China. We haven't seen their response yet. It's coming. And we think with boots on the ground that we're going to maintain some type of structure of governance when we have a administration that doesn't even understand the politics of the region. I would bet money. I would bet my next paycheck right now, if someone took a coloring book of the Western Hemisphere and put it in front of Donald Trump, and Pete Hegseth can sit there and help him, no labels on the map, he couldn't tell you the difference between Venezuela and Colombia. Guarantee it. In all the times he's been shown it in his little maps of bombs being blown up, he doesn't care. The throttles and the leverages of this are not being pulled by our President Donald Trump. They're being pulled by the Prime Minister of Israel, Milikowski. And that's, America needs to wake up to that not only are we going to continue to spend you think any of the treasure and the oil and the money we gain from this intervention in Venezuela that Trump touts as, now the oil is ours again. To the average American, Do you think you're going to see a penny of that? You won't, because
I
we're
keep
going to
saying
start
this
spending
all the
more,
time.
giving more to Israel.
I keep saying this all the time. We live in a country that never benefits from anything that the upper echelon of society ever does. This is imperialism of the worst kind, because you don't even have your people behind you. You just go and make decisions arbitrarily that have no consideration whatsoever as to what's in the best interest of its people. There are a lot of people around the world who would accept imperialism if it truly benefited them as people. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And there are people that believe still in this hogwash concept of American exceptionalism. But the more you see this, the more you see this commentary, the more you recognize who truly is in control here, the more it, and again, it's not a question of whether Netanyahu Milikowski is in control. He's not in control either. Who is in control is a oligarchic billionaire class that all happen to be Zionists. And most of them are Jewish, yes, but at the end of the day, they share an ideology. That is what they believe in. And that is why right now, as I try to point out to people, you want to know who really makes decisions? You are seeing Larry Ellison trying to do a hostile takeover over Netflix's head to take control of Warner Brothers. Nowhere else would this even be possible. We have the most concrete laws that we've ever had on the books against things like this. And he is just going to do what he's going to do, because we are one nation under blackmail in an oligarchic system that has now spread their wings and doesn't give a fuck who knows it anymore. But let Milikowski say a few more things before we finish this clip.
The eighth front is the most challenging one, and that's the battle for truth. Speak the truth. You do anyway. Do it more loudly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We also welcome Senator Ashley Moody. You mentioned that.
Yeah, Ashley Moody. And you wonder why she still has a position of power? Is it any question how this works? So somebody's like, why doesn't Trump get rid of Ashley Moody? Why would he? It's not his decision. And even if he did, why would he care? This again, it's pretty obvious what we're looking at. This is a nation that is controlled by a foreign entity, or it's controlled by a traitorous ruling class that adheres to their interests above the American people. I don't know about you, man, but there's a reason this channel is called Revolutionary Change. It's not a mistake.